Thank you so much for watching Landumc Goes There. Please subscribe and hit the like button and the bell notification button. The Devil's Brigade is a 1968 war film that was based on a 1966 book of the same name that was co-written by American novelist and historian Robert H. Alderman and Colonel George Walton, a member of the brigade. The film stars William Holden, Cliff Robertson, Vince Edwards, Andrew Prine, Claude Akins, and Richard Jekyll. The storyline is a fictional account of the 1st Special Service Force, the Joint Canadian-American World War II Commando Group under the command of Colonel Robert Frederick. The Canadians are the best that the Canadian Army has to offer. They're spit and polished, multi-skilled people, and experienced soldiers. The Americans are the dregs of the U.S. Army. They're misfits and troublemakers, lacking any kind of discipline at all. Over time, Frederick forges a unified, highly competent fighting force. Initially trained for a commando operation in Norway, Frederick has to move quickly to keep the unit together after that operation is canceled. They are then sent to Italy, where they distinguish themselves in battle. The producer of the film, David Walper, was a noted documentary filmmaker, and he was interested in getting into feature films. He purchased the rights to the book in October of 1965. He was attracted to the material because he didn't want to be just known as a serious documentarian filmmaker, and he liked the way this book was based on truth, but he knew it could be made into a movie that was a fun and games type thing. In October of 1966, William Holden agreed to star in the movie. The following month, Andrew McLaughlin agreed to direct it. Some famous names that turned down roles in the movie were David Niven and Dan Blocker. Yeah, that's Hoss from Bonanza. The Devil's Brigade actually existed. Its formal military designation was the 1st Special Services Force and was also known as the Black Devils. It was indeed a joint American-Canadian unit and was comprised of 3 regiments of 2 battalions each. It was envisioned for difficult, cold weather mountain warfare missions. The members were known as Force Men. They were initially earmarked for Northern Europe, but they were first sent to the Pacific and then to the Italian campaign before finishing its service in southern France in 1944. During its existence, the brigade suffered casualty rates of 39%. On the 30-mile hike, you'll hear Vince Edwards' character tell the U.S. troops, "All right now, look alive. I know this is route step, but shape up." Route step is a marching maneuver where troops don't have to keep cadence and stay in step, but should keep distance and intervals and alignment together. This is similar to an at-ease march, but you are allowed to talk. Route step is primarily used when marching over bridges that may or may not be safe. Marching in cadence would create vibrations in the bridge that could cause it to collapse. The real Robert Frederick, the commander of the Devil's Brigade, had a mustache in real life. But William Holden, who reportedly didn't like his image on film with a mustache, refused to grow one or to wear a false one. So you'll see him clean-lipped throughout the film. Just 1 year later, Holden did agree to wear a mustache, although it was a false one, in The Wild Bunch from 1969, after he had several arguments with Sam Peckinpah about him wearing one. You'll see the famous Green Bay Packers running back, Paul Hornung, as he plays one of the lumberjacks in the bar during the brawl scene. He was the 2nd lumberjack to enter the bar, wearing the red flannel shirt. Now, if you've never seen this movie, you got to realize this is a pretty good film. Very well directed, very well shot, and acted. But this movie had the misfortune of being released a few months after The Dirty Dozen, which was a star-studded blockbuster hit. This film just got smothered by the popularity of The Dirty Dozen, and it killed it. It just got lost in the wind. Besides the general storyline, the two films had two things in common. Richard Jackal, who appeared in both films, and each movie featured a former pro football star. Jim Brown in The Dirty Dozen and Paul Hornung in this movie. William Holden was very cooperative during the shooting while he was in Utah. At that time, he would only drink wine and basically just do that at night. But once they moved to Italy, his drinking just got completely out of control. The production had to call in a special assistant, which was a woman from Paris who had dealt with Holden before, and she helped him finish the film on schedule. Without her help, Holden was completely falling apart, and the production basically had to come to a stop. Holden was a guy that just struggled with drinking most of his adult life, and it was felt like that it stemmed from things that had happened in the Second World War. You see, he was really patriotic and enlisted, although he never saw time on the combat field. Instead, he spent his days starring in endless rounds of rallies, talent shows, and training films because he was already a celebrity and everybody knew him. Holden really felt guilty about this. He wanted to get out there and put his life on the line, just like his brother was doing. On January 4th, 1944, he learned that enemy fire had downed his brother's plane in the South Pacific, and this completely tore him up. The guilt of this nearly destroyed him, and it haunted him all his days, even after his service ended. He just never got over it. On November 12, 1981, after years of being recognized for his really successful films and his abundant charity work, he lost his life in a terribly heartbreaking way. While he was intoxicated in his apartment, he slipped on a rug and hit his head on a bedside table, bleeding to death on the floor of his home. He wasn't found for 4 days. He was then cremated, and his ashes were scattered in the Pacific Ocean. All this in accordance with his wishes, and there was no funeral or memorial service conducted at all. Take a look back at this fantastic movie. It's a good one, and a lot of people have missed watching it. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll continue to chase the classics.